Well, you were off the deep end for last week or down in Guatemala.
I was in
fishing.
Guatemala.
But you know what? This week
We
you are
crushed 'em.
here where you belong.
Yeah, yes, I'm
in
back.
your home.
How long? We've been doing this a long time. Was it 11
10
years? 10
or 11 years?
This was 11th year, I think.
You know, and Chevy's been involved since day one, which is lucky for us.
Yes, sir.
But we are talking about rigs and techniques. Tell me about it.
Well, we're talking about cobias, and you know, my parents are in the Eglin area, and so I grew up fishing there, and my brother fishes for cobia a lot, and he called me just this weekend, just like Patty says, they're catching them really good. But up there, we do it a little different. Like you said, the cobia come inshore in the springtime, and they migrate from east to west, and we get up real close to the shoreline on the really pretty green water, and we sight cast to the fish. A cobia looks like a big brown shark when he's in the water.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people mistake them for sharks quite often when they don't know what they are. But if you're coming up and down that beach, if we have a good wind, any other than a west wind, which might make them go down, they don't like going into the wind. If we have a following wind or a north wind that'll keep them up against the beach, we can catch quite a few, 7, 8, 9, 10 a day, you know, even more. So, and we do it primarily by sight fishing for them. Sight fishing, you usually start with a live bait. Cobias love a live bait. They love any kind of fish. They love the live eel. If you can get a hold of some live eels, you're going to be doing good. And when you want to hook a live eel, you don't want to use a big giant hook. Now you're going to be catching some pretty strong fish. So a cobia has a broad body and a big wide tail, so he can pull really hard. So this is not a place or a time when you want to use a light wire hook.
Right.
You want to use a heavy hook. At the same time, if you're using a live bait like a mullet or a little snapper or a little vermilion or a grunt, you don't want to use a hook that's so thick that it could actually hurt and wound and kill the bait. Because a lot of times you're going to have to cast this bait maybe more than once, sometimes 2 times, sometimes 3 times to get that cobia to eat it. And if you've poked a great big hole in him with a big giant hook, sometimes your bait's going to die. And Donnie Brown calls me the mullet killer because I killed a few.
Big old.
I didn't use big old hook.
All
I
right,
killed
so
his
Dave,
mullet.
whether you're in the Panhandle or any other place in the state, I know a lot of guys love to jig fish for them. So tell me what your theory is behind it.
Well, you know, the gaudier the jig, the better. I mean, the fellas like to use either a chartreuse or a hot pink like this one, any kind of octopus-shaped head and or a flathead if you're seeing them on the surface and they're not sinking real fast, you know, and you can use a jig that you don't want to sink as so fast. Also, they like to dress them up with a nice eel tail sometimes.
I gotcha.
If you're not using a plastic tail, sometimes you'll throw a big chunk of squid on here if you can't get them to eat that jig. You go through a progression. You throw a live eel. If you don't have any eels, you throw a live mullet. If you don't have a live mullet, then you throw a live pilchard, whatever other fish, and then you throw a jig. Now, some guys are really good with the jig, and they'll just haul off and throw it right off the bat. You want to use a nice 20-pound minimum spinning rod. This might be just on the light side,
right?
But I like to use lighter stuff. I like to catch big fish on lighter tackle. This is like 12-pound test line. If you use 7, 8 pounds of drag.
How do you work the jig? How do you want to work it?
Well, you want to throw. You don't want to. First off, when you cast it, you don't want to hit the fish in the head with it. You want to give him a good 3 or 4 feet out in front of him when you throw that jig to him. And then what I do is I watch the fish. As soon as you throw that jig, and if the fish sees it and accelerates on it, I don't do anything. I let him sweep down and catch that
So you
jig.
stop the jig?
I don't do anything. I let him, he'll pile down and try to get it. If you see the fish accelerate, once that jig hits the water and he doesn't go away and he accelerates to go get it, I won't even move it, because as soon as he gets close to it and I don't see it, I'll jerk it out of his face, and then he might not come back to it. If I let it sink, or I let that live bait or the jig sink when I know he sees it, then I have a better chance of hooking him, because he'll run right to it and grab it. Now, if he doesn't accelerate immediately and he's kind of lethargic, then you just give it some good sweeps, back all the way up almost to the surface and let it fall again. And then when he starts making that run, you let him have it. Let him have it.
It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
All right, man. Well, Lauren, you got my back. So where are we going? What region are we going to next?